Welcome, everyone, to another episode of LANCESCURV. Today's topic is probably controversial to many, but I'll put it this way. I promised that I was going to go into deeper and deeper topics, deeper conversations, and things that many people do not want to talk about. And here we are. And the title of today's program is The Spiritual Scars of Buck Breaking, How the Past Still Affects Jamaican Manhood Today. Now, before I go any further, I want to clarify a few things before people jump on me, okay? This is not an attack on Jamaican men. Men across all age groups, races, nationalities, and ethnicities go through some of the same things within their personal life, but I'm focusing on the spiritual scars of buck breaking, specifically buck breaking in slavery times, when those who are enslaved from Africa were brought to Jamaica to primarily buck break them before they were distributed elsewhere in the Caribbean and other places. Now, buck breaking happened in America, in South America, where we were dropped off. So this is not just exclusive to Jamaica, but it's an overall thing. But my experiences and my observations, my personal experiences and observations, lend me to focus on the island of Jamaica because that's a place that I know well as far as the culture. My father being Jamaican, I was born in America. I was never living in Jamaica. I've been to Jamaica twice. But when you were born and raised in New York City, you have a chance to experience so many different races and cultures, nationalities and ethnicities. But there are a whole lot of Jamaicans there, just like you have folks from Trinidad, Barbados. Please don't ignorantly say that I'm saying Jamaican men are gay. No, they're not. But there's a whole lot more than you would suspect. And there are a lot of men who are not gay, and there are some who are struggling with gay feelings. And many, and this is my observation, will overcompensate by being extra macho, extra tough, extra hard. They focus on manhood. I'm a man, be a man. I'm a man. You're too soft, man. I want no batiman around me. While at the same time, those who are struggling with it may proclaim that. And I've noticed this over the years. Is it a generational thing? I wouldn't say so. Because I had an uncle that I pretty much knew was gay, but it was hush hush. And he worked in the Supreme Court in Jamaica many years ago. He passed away in 1975. But those are things that many people overlook. But it didn't seem as though he was struggling. It didn't seem as though he was revolting against it and lashing out at the world. He's a brilliant man, and he lived with a gentleman who I was told was my cousin. No, that wasn't a cousin. Wasn't a cousin. But they didn't act effeminate. And this is me looking back because it wasn't public information within my family. My father was a man's man, not hung up on anything, taught me how to be a man, supported me in so much and guided me, just like my mother as a mother guided me and supported me and taught me so much about the world. But coming up at that time and born in 63 and coming up into realizations in the 70s and going into the 80s. And as you well know, and these are facts, I'm not throwing off on anybody. We had crack, cocaine, flood the streets of New York City and other cities and states in America. And there were many people who made a profit, blood on their hands, but nonetheless a profit, and succumbed to karma because of what they did. And if you can remember, it was heavily publicized. Again, we're not throwing off on Jamaicans, but we know that there were Jamaican posses that sold crack and made lots of money. And they were portrayed to be the most vicious of all. You know, if you betrayed them, it wasn't just the movies, but I heard of a guy who, you know, they took him up to this apartment. I'm saying all this for a reason on the buildup. And they tied him up to a chair and took a hot iron, and put it on different parts of his bodies, burned them. The killings and the shootings, and it was everybody. Not everybody, but in the inner city, there were different races who did this and who had their little posses, large and small. But it was a macho element to this. And with the music, the dancehall music, and you know, a lot of Jamaicans had the stigma, reputation in the city as being people that you don't want to mess with. Because just like many Italian men who will act as though they're in the mafia or connected, and they are not, just to benefit from the reputation of the mob. Well, there were many Jamaicans who tried to benefit streetwise from simply being Jamaican. And it's a funny call because you didn't know who was who. But me being comfortable being around Jamaicans, I saw a lot through that, because many didn't know I was in my bloodline through my father connected to Jamaica, right? So many people who didn't know Jamaicans, like my father, was hardworking, law-abiding, had his own business, did various jobs. When he first came to the country, he was in the British Navy. He was born in 1916, so he was a little older than most, you know, but he knew life, and he poured all of that into me. And he never went for that, you know, but it's a generational thing. And then all of a sudden, we see how the media pushed it. You know, Bad Boys, the gunman, and all of this stuff. And innocent Jamaicans, abiding, you know, polite, intelligent Jamaican people had this stigma on them, just the same way with the mob, the Italians and the mafia. Many people would get afraid when these guys who weren't even in the mob started talking that way. So it's a blurred line. But what I really want to say about this is that it was the macho guys who shoot you in a second the way they wanted to portray themselves. And I have to give credit where credit was due. I believe it was 89, 90, 91, around, yeah, 89, 90, 91. I won't say their names, but I spent a lot of time with a crew of Jamaican guys. And one of them owned a video shop in Queens. We became very close friends. I did not detect any of this topic in them, but they were involved in things that when they got involved in things, they knew to leave me out of it. But they would come around me and we'd have lots of fun. We threw several parties together. I turned them on to sushi. You know what I mean? We had fun. The one thing that I didn't like at the time, the firearms that they carried, you know, but it didn't bother me. But I didn't run with that aspect that I say, listen, if one of y'all got something in another car, okay, but don't drive and have that around me or bring that into my car. And they respected me. So I got a chance to really, as many would call me, a Yankee with connections, right? But I didn't grow up there. But they respected me. They didn't know me at first. And the way I got to know them was a girlfriend and I ran a beauty parlor right next door to the video shop. And they thought I was like law enforcement because I always keep myself clean cut. But over time, when they got to know me, they embraced me. So I would not wrongfully accuse anybody because anybody who lives a certain life, they live their life. Now, let me bring it up some. Dance hall, music, and the parties that I've gone to a lot of parties in Brooklyn over the years. And in that time period of my life, had a lot of fun. We got to know the culture. But as time went on, as it did with R&B music and hip hop, there was, and not yet with dancehall, right? But with hip hop, they started to introduce this gay element right up under our noses and we didn't know it. It's just like the song Flavor in Your Ear. And LL Cool J, when his part said, he, she, and that was a dude dancing behind him in a skirt. How about the Biggie Smalls or Notorious B.I.G. video where he was in the bed with that same thing? And there's another video where this thing is in a dress urinating in a man's bathroom. So little subliminal hints were pushed out there. And as time went on, as with the general population, this thing was being pushed. So it wasn't shocking anymore to the younger generations. But now I'm seeing that there are gay reggae artists, dancehall artists that are out here doing their thing. I don't know how popular they are. Let me see if I can pull this up and give me a second to manipulate this. Pull this out right here. Okay, hold on. I want to show this. And I want to show this part and the stage. I may play this several times over, but because it goes so quick to clip. Okay, that's a little clip right there. Let this roll. That's how me born and that's how me like it. So he's saying he's born gay and that's how he likes it. I'm not going to play 50 million of this guy's videos. And I don't know if he's just a internet sensation with a very low following, but from the way it looks, he's getting a lot of responses on his page. I'll let this run 2 or 3 more times and I'll switch it up.
Just like this, got a damn thing to fix. I saw me born and I saw me born and I saw me like it. I saw me born and I saw me like it. I saw me born and I saw me like it.
Okay, that's enough of him. Let me move on to another one that I think I did not put up yet. Let me remove him. First, we'll cover it with the banner. Remove him. Let me add on another one. Okay, let's see if we can play this one. Let me get rid of this guy. Share screen. Let's see what we can do. Okay. I think I got it. All right, let's remove this banner. This is another short clip, just to give you a little flavor here. We're going to get to the main part.
No more hiding at any longer. Have a problem, just kiss me bumper. No more hiding at any longer. Have a problem, go suck your mother. We coming out and we pretty like a Barbie. No more hiding at any longer.
No more hiding, not any longer. These guys are named Bati Riders. So we already know what they're coming out with.
No more hiding at any longer. Have a problem, go suck your mother. We coming out and we pretty like a Barbie. No more hiding at any longer. Have a problem, just kiss me bumper. No more hiding at any longer. Have a problem, go suck your mother.
Okay, enough of that. There's 50 million clips out here, just like that. So, okay, we're going to play that in a second. That was pre-recorded from me, and we're going to play that because I didn't want to miss any points, but I wanted to kind of set it up, what I felt, and bringing it on up. Now, there's a YouTuber named, I believe his name is Walter Lee Hampton III, I believe. He's a gay YouTuber. He's been out there for a long time. Madam Whipass, who many of you know who comes on the show occasionally, she put me on to him. I'm like, you put me on to this guy. I don't want to watch this guy. But she explained that he's not just some guy talking about those lifestyles. He talks about a lot of other things, and he will talk about it, but he, as a gay man, and it's funny, he's not with the stuff that many of these men in that lifestyle do. I'm not saying they all are this way, but promiscuity, the club life, the drugs, the users, the ones who, that whole world, and he lives in Atlanta, is a whole underworld of things. And usually listening to him, you can kind of see what's coming out from that world before it hits mainstream. So most of the time he's speaking politics or different personal things, whatever. But when I see a title that, I was like, okay, I need to see this because this is gonna hit the mainstream or mainstream world. But because he's a gay man in that world, hearing it closer, he gets it first. I watch all kind of things, and he's not sissified. He's not whatever. He just straight up talking like it is. And one of the things he likes to talk about is how there's so many married straight men that hit on him more so because he's on YouTube and well known. Now, let's swing it around to one of the points, and this is why I brought him up, because I could bring up a lot of different points. But he does well for himself. I think he has his own construction business, and he deals with different things. And a lot of people like him because he's like, talks normal. He doesn't, So he was saying one time that he was on his way to a trip to Jamaica. He was going there with a friend. And you know what that means. I ain't saying it. But he had his Facebook page on, right? And what I mean on is that the part of Facebook that, I don't think they still have it, but you have a friends list, right? On Facebook. They used to have it where you would have to turn this particular feature off. And that feature let you know when any of your friends were close by. And it would say on a map, your friend LANCESCURV is close by or whatever. I don't think they say the mileage. I think they did. 4 miles away from you. It would show if I was at the store, or you wouldn't know, but you see the general area. And if you pulled it in, you can pretty much see where I was. Okay. So he had that on in America. Now here he is flying down to Jamaica, which from Atlanta to Jamaica can't be a long flight. So as soon as the plane started to land, he had his phone on. We got to cut it off or in airplane mode. All of a sudden, bing, 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 bing. He started getting and receiving these rapid fire notifications. So he's like, what the heck? What the heck is going on with these notifications? I'm getting all these notifications. So he started to look at these notifications, and they were messages to him from people in Jamaica. And he said, well, I'm a gay man, shocked to see that there were so many gay men in Jamaica, being the fact that, you know, the general word is that they don't go for them bati boys, even though we know there's a lot down there. So when he started to look at the messages, it was like, hey, Walter, how are you? I'm your biggest fan. I'd love for you to come by and see me before you leave. And that was the kind of messages that he was getting. He said before the plane stopped on the runway, he had about 75 messages. And he's like, wait a second. He said, I know there's gay men everywhere, but so many, so fast on a small island like this? So he was dumbfounded. Now, he went on to talk about some other things. But what I'm saying is that let's bring it back to the original point of what I want to speak about, buck breaking and the spiritual scars of buck breaking, the ramifications of buck breaking. Why do these men these days, and I'm focusing on Jamaica because that's, in our opinion, or how they put themselves out there, that's the roughest place there. You know, Jamaica's tougher than this island and tougher than that island. You got gangsters everywhere, all over the Caribbean and America, South America, everywhere, different races. But the stigma, I just find it amazing. I find it funny that for a place that culturally and generally was so hard against that under all of that, many of those brothers were fighting against it. So they lashed out against it. They want to prove their manhood and be tough, and a lot of them were struggling. Not all, but some, and a number I just won't know. But I think there's a direct correlation between the buck breaking that happened during slavery on the island of Jamaica, where they made sure to take the biggest, strongest, charismatic, enslaved brothers from Africa and chop them down to size in front of their families, in front of their children. It happened here in America, but that place there was known for it. And I do believe it's passed down in the DNA somehow. The trauma is passed down. So this is why I want to play this little part that I pre-recorded so I get everything in, and then we'll still talk about it. Here we go. The transatlantic slave trade was one of the darkest chapters in human history. It wasn't just about free labor or ownership of bodies. It was also about psychological and spiritual destruction. One of the most brutal and hidden practices during this time was called buck breaking. This was the act of taking enslaved African men, strong, proud, and rebellious, and humiliating them through public sodomy. Jamaica was known as the main location where this took place. Enslavers would single out the strongest men and violate them in front of their families and communities. The goal wasn't just physical control. It was to kill the warrior spirit inside of them. Imagine what it does to a man's soul to be stripped of his dignity in such a way, in front of women, in front of children. He goes from being a leader to a warning sign. The message was clear. If you rise up, this will be your fate. This was used to break the will of the enslaved. But the pain and shame didn't stop with that one man. It spread through his bloodline. This wasn't just physical abuse. It was spiritual abuse. It targeted identity, pride, and the very core of masculinity. Many of us never learned this in school. I didn't know about it for years, but once I did, so much started to make sense. In my opinion, the spiritual damage caused by buck breaking was passed down through generations. It didn't just die with the original victims. It carried through blood, through the DNA, and into the mindset of many Jamaican men today. They may not know where this deep inner pain comes from, but it's there. It hides behind bravado. It speaks in anger. It shows up in broken relationships and confused identities. This may be why, in my experience, so many Jamaican men go out of their way to prove that they are a man. Be a man. Don't challenge me. I'm not weak. We've all heard it. Some of them are more aggressive than they need to be. Some are scared to show emotion. Others lash out at anything that seems like weakness. Why? Because deep inside, there's a wound they can't name. It was never stitched up. It was passed down, still bleeding from generation to generation. And now it continues to confuse and torment. This is also, in my observation, a heavy tension when it comes to homosexuality. Many Jamaican men speak out against it loudly and strongly. But at the same time, I've known too many young boys on the island who were touched and violated as children. These things are not often talked about openly. Shame keeps them quiet. But behind closed doors, it's real. I believe that the silence and shame surrounding male sexual trauma is a part of the spiritual damage by buck breaking. You cannot go through horrors as a people and expect it to have no effect down the line. Now, fast forward to today. Look at how many Jamaican men are in pain. How many are angry, distant, or constantly on edge? How many struggle with identity or manhood? Some may act tough and proud, but inside, they are still trying to prove something. That is not by accident. That is a direct result of what was done to our ancestors. This generational trauma was designed to confuse us about what it means to be a man. And because it was never healed, it lives on, quiet, but very powerful. We must understand that trauma is just emotional or mental. It is also spiritual. When a man is broken on the inside, his energy changes. His blood carries memory. His children inherit more than just his features. They inherit his pain. And if we don't talk about it, if we don't face it, we'll keep repeating it. We'll keep hurting one another. We'll keep passing down silence, shame, and confusion instead of healing and clarity. This is not about attacking Jamaican men. My father is from Jamaica, rest his soul. But this is about healing. This is about facing the root of the issue. You cannot heal what you cannot face and what you will not face. And you cannot build strong families and strong communities if men are still broken in their spirit. We must go back and name what happened. We must talk about the violence, the abuse, and the humiliation that our ancestors endured. Only then can we begin to free ourselves from the chains that still bind us today. I believe that part of the reason for the hidden homosexuality among some young Jamaican men is because they are still dealing with spiritual confusion. They may not know where it comes from. It may not even be their fault, but it's there. And when something is in your spirit, your energy, and your history, it needs more than silence to go away. It needs light. It needs truth. It needs healing. And it needs us as a people to stop pretending that everything is fine when it's not. We must create spaces for our men to speak, to be honest, to cry if they need to unpack the pain they've carried for too long. That does not make them weak. It makes them brave. The strength of a man is not in how well he hides his wounds, but in how willing he is to heal them. This is not just a fight for individual men. This is a fight for our future, because when the men are healed, the families are stronger, the children grow up safer, the women feel more protected, and the nation rises. It's time to break the silence, time to expose the root of the spiritual damage came through buck breaking. Time to stop the shame. This is the truth, and it's not meant to blame, it's meant to explain. And in explaining, we take our power back. We reconnect with our manhood, not as something to prove, but something to reclaim. Not in anger, but with understanding. That's how we begin to rebuild what was stolen from us. Yes, indeed. It pretty much explains it. And I also want to add on that it doesn't mean that these men are struggling with that because they are that or want to be that. They may not be that, but the spiritual scars brought down from buck breaking can be resting on their shoulder, and they struggle with that. Something passed down that wasn't dealt with. It doesn't mean they're going to be a homosexual. It just means that they feel the weight of it. Because this is what I've learned with trauma. Say, for example, this is just an example, maybe I'll give 2 or 3. You have a family, a mother and a father, a daughter and a son. And the daughter, okay, let me just not jump so fast. The family is pretty wholesome, pretty happy. You know, the husband works, the wife works, maybe not as much, but they pretty much have it together. And everything is pretty cool. They have their concerns for the children and life and all of those things that we go through in life. But they're up and up. Now, all of a sudden, and this is an example, the daughter, who say she's about 15 or 16 years old, she gets violated, SA'd. You can't really say the full thing. Some people say grape and drop the G, but that's what happens to her. And now it's not just her going through it. The trauma runs through the family now. And the whole family feels it. It's not just the daughter. The father questions himself. What could I have done so that this didn't happen? She was grown enough to walk to the store down the block, but he's thinking if he had only went with her. The mother has her feelings. She carried her daughter for 9 months, so it hits her in a different way. Who can say if it's a more intimate way, but as a female, as a woman, she feels it different than the father, who is more of a protector. Not that the mother is not. And then we have the brother who's around the same age, who's full of rage now because he sees the innocence of his sister taken away and how she has become reclusive, not as bubbly, and it has affected the whole family, even beyond the immediate family, the core family, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins. Everybody's affected. So when it comes to buck breaking, it's not that this is something that was done to a particular man hundreds of years ago when people from Africa, melanated people, were enslaved. This affected the whole family who had to see this. This affected so much coming down. The same way that we still have reactions and we have feelings towards certain things in our world that didn't happen in this immediate time, but it happened generations ago, but it's passed down. We got to realize how much is passed down, how much we absorb, that fear. Ask yourself, I'm not going to say it's only because of buck breaking, but just general situations. You may have a fear of something, and you don't know why you're afraid of this thing. It could be something passed down to you. It could be something that was verbalized to you by your forebears, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever, and you accepted it consciously. But I feel, in my opinion, there's a lot of things that we accept or embrace not knowing how deadly it is because it's been passed down. We get everything. You buy a shiny new car to you, but it's actually a used car. The neglect of that car, when the previous owner didn't maintain it right, is automatically transferred over to you. And now you have adopted that. Because I feel that there's so many things on a mental, spiritual, and physical level. Certain traits are passed down. Certain propensities for diseases are passed down. And it's not always dyed in the wool with every family member, because we are individuals with different strengths and weaknesses and things we have to watch out for. But something so traumatic and embarrassing and humiliating, demeaning, emasculating, where you have these twisted white men who will subdue a black man and go up into his rectum that way in front of everybody. If not that, push something up there. We got to realize what's happening here. You got to realize what's happening. And there's an anger that comes out of that down to the generations. It's almost like, and remember, I'm no better than anybody else. I had a lot of wisdom from young, growing up in the city that I grew up in. No wiser than anybody else, but I had my experiences, very intense, talking to people. And eventually, when I moved out of New York City and started working with the incarcerated, there were many young men that I got a chance to speak to. I had to, because I'm there working with them. And there were a lot of brothers that in these units, these day rooms, which may have 20 cells in this particular area. Some had four men to a cell. Some day rooms had 2 men to a cell. Some day rooms had one man to a cell, because they were special management, and that's who I worked with. So I had to be, I'm not putting them down, I had to be out there to be able to deal with them and have a mindset of those who crossed over the line of madness when they wanted to, right? And I had to figure them out intuitively. And my discernment helped me out a great deal. So we had a lot of young men who would rile up against us as corrections officers because we might have a new inmate assigned to that particular day room. And there were vacancies in some of those cells. So whenever we had a new inmate come to our area, we had to check everything and add them in on the computer and check everything and make sure the numbers were right before we let them enter the cell. One of the biggest things is to keep separate from list, because they might be on the same case as another inmate, and we have to keep them separate because they might start talking and getting their lives together before the time to come to court. So you have to make sure that anybody in that unit has no dealing with them, or it might be a keep separate from because they're on separate gangs, or they're part of the case but on opposite sides. So one guy who is basically known as a snitch who's going to testify against another inmate, that other inmate might try to kill him or have him killed. A very serious thing. But when they're standing there with their little bag, it's like a little, how could I put it? It's like a little pillow, but bigger, with strings in it, you know? They have their change of outfits. They may have some books, toothbrush, and maybe some commissary that they have. More, but they're standing there, and they're fiberglass. It's not bars where I worked. Thick fiberglass and heavy metal doors. So you have a new person coming in. These guys are bored. They're playing cards. They're telling jokes. They're exercising. Some are heavily medicated and sleeping. Well, they want to know who's coming in because they see this guy standing next to my desk. And I'm inputting his information. It might be somebody they know from the street, which is not a crime. It might also be a flaming homosexual. And so this is what you hear when they're misbehaving. Yo, man, don't put that faggot in there with me, man. I'm going to hurt him. You have a lot of that going on. Some didn't care, right? Some might have known the gay dude from before, not for doing gay things, but he was an intelligent guy who had good conversation. So they, oh, yeah, you have him coming with me. It's no problem. But half the time, he did not. Those who had vacancies, like, yo, don't put him in here. I'm telling you, SCURV is going to be a problem. You're going to have to be here late. I'm going to hurt this guy. You have to separate us. We'll have to do a long report tonight. And you ain't going home no time soon. And I know today is your Friday. Whether it was my Thursday, Wednesday, whatever, that was my Friday. They have the next 2 days off. And they threatening me. Threatening me. Oh, I didn't see you come on in, Kevin. How are you, brother? They're threatening me, right? That they're going to do something, not to me. So you take note of that because you don't want to bring any problems onto the next shift. So you say, okay, let's see who would deal with him. Or maybe there's a 2-man cell that was empty. But that's your best bet. The next shift can put him somewhere. So when it's time to put these guys down, when they get into their cells, you lock them in. Because we didn't like to get new inmates right before we're going home because we got to do stuff on the computer. We want to get out of there. So one of the guys that spoke up the most, who didn't want the homosexual guy in his cell, and he had a vacancy, a bunk in his cell. These were 2-man cells. He hit the door on the glass. Yo, SCURV. Yo, SCURV. I want to talk to you, man. I said, man, I understand you don't want this guy in here, man, so don't worry about it. I'm not going to put him in there with you. No, man, it's something else. Now, mind you, this is the guy who was cussing up a storm, threatening to hurt the guy if I put him in the cell with him. So he kept bugging me. So I had them roll the doors, and I went upstairs because he was on the second tier. And I said, listen, what do you got to say, man? You spoke your mind already. No, come a little closer, man. I don't want nobody to hear me. You gonna try to snuff me or something? I'm thinking, I'm ready for you. This is a big guy too. He says, yo, you see that guy there? I said, yeah, the one that you said you was gonna kill if I put him in a cell with you. Yeah. Man, that was fronting, right? I want you to put him in here with me. I said, man, I can't do that. After you made up all of that noise, how you were threatening him, if I put him in here with you and you actually did something to him, the whole unit is going to say, and the other officers are going to say what you said. I can't do that. Oh, man, come on, man. Put him in here with me. I said, wait a second. Let me ask you something. Why do you want him in here with you? And he gets a smirk and he starts laughing a little bit. I said, so what's up with you and the punk? Because, down there they call them punk, up north they call them fags, whatever. I'm not with the derogatory on anybody, but that's what it is. I said, come on, man, he can hit me off sometime. We're in the cell together. I said, oh, man, you made all that noise and you really wanted the dude in there with you. I'm just saying these stories are common. And out in the outside world, I'll say, ladies, you just don't know. I mean, to each his own, let people live how they want to live. But what I'm saying is that going back to the original subject, in the Caribbean, and especially Jamaica, there are spiritual scars. Now, I don't know what this guy's story was, because there's all kind of reasons for all kind of things, and it's never always really the same reason, right? But nonetheless, I couldn't put him in the cell with the guy, but somehow, some way, another officer did, because he called to me the next when I'm back in 2 days. Yo, SCURV, I'm happy. I'm like, yeah, I bet you are. I bet you are. But the thing with men in general, and we're not just talking about Jamaican men, nobody wants to speak about what is inside. Like, you don't have to. That's your business. But it's something you're struggling with. Most men will not open up about that because they fear they'll be looked at as less. But they're holding on to that. Whatever you're going through on the inside, open up, let it out, talk to the right people who you can trust. Because there's no need to hold things in, whether you're a man or a woman dealing with anything. You know, we have people out here who have substance abuse problems and challenges, and they're ashamed because of the stigma that they're facing, that, oh my God, I'm an addict. Oh my God, I'm doing this. I used to look down on that, and now I'm the one doing it. You see what I mean? So many people have internal struggles, and usually there's an indication externally that lets you know there's something going on. And when your discernment is really sharp, you can pretty much pinpoint it once you lived enough life and have a feeling on what's going on. But for these men who have to deal with this, remember, not just the spiritual scars of buck breaking, but also the spiritual scars of whatever is passed down in your bloodline. You might be a person who was raised up in a fairly good home, but you didn't know it, but your grandparents, or maybe one of your parents, was involved heavy into health. And then you're going to have certain experiences that you can't explain, and you think you're going crazy, but it's not you. There's all kind of things. Look, I know there's a family on my block where the father ran through all of the kids, all of them. And when I was younger, I used to play with them. But there was a strange tension in those children and in the household. And come to find out, the father was running through them. And Brother Kevin, if you're here, you know who I'm talking about. That husband was wicked. He molested all, and how many children were there? Like, I think it was 13 brothers and sisters. And he locked away his wife for about 5 years in the attic. There was 3 stories in the home. First floor, the second floor, in the attic. And we didn't know where she went. We didn't, because we weren't close with them like that once we got a little older. And one day, 5 years later, she's sitting on the steps, the mother, who I knew well. And her hair was white. And she was tucked away in that little attic for years. He would push a bucket in there for her to do the obvious and answer a call to nature. And the kids, the daughters would make food, and the husband would give her the food. And that was it. She wasn't even allowed to come out to wash. One of the daughters, the older daughters, would help her wash. And when I saw her sitting on the steps, I didn't recognize her. She looked exactly the same, but she aged 20 years. And when I realized, I was polite and waved to her, but she looked right through me. Now that's trauma. So even if it's not something like what we're talking about, many of us, whether it's large or small, are affected by something in our life or in our bloodline. And that's the way it is. I put the link there for anybody who wants to come on in, if you have anything that you want to add on to. But I've seen this time and time again. I've seen people change. I've seen people lose their minds and can't come back. I've seen people endure things that you wouldn't think a human being could endure in their life. And they made it through strong, almost effortlessly. Our physical, mental, and spiritual makeup is completely different depending on who we are. And we can be in the same family and be so much stronger than the rest or so much weaker. So we don't know what we're dealing with. And this is also to, yeah, Diane. Yeah. But that man That man, well, he's definitely transitioned a long time ago, but he lost his mind. You know, one of his sons was a cross dresser. Another one, they were all just whatever. One of the daughters, she was just off the chain. She was a little older than me, but she was always hitting on me. But I knew it was something else going on with her. Um, in that household, the daughters, some of them were dealing with bestiality, and the dogs, things I've seen with my eyes. It's crazy. So you got to be careful. And this is why when you see things with youngsters and see things with other people, they may not say anything, but they might be suffering, right? We've all suffered different things, more or less, and sometimes we can get over it, uh, on our own. We can logically walk ourselves through healing, but most of us can't, especially when it's so traumatic. And this is why when you get with somebody, you see somebody, they seem like they have everything all together. I'm not saying to not deal with them if you see they have an issue, right? But don't let the outer appearance fool you. When you find they may have an issue, talk to them, help them. There's nothing wrong with them. Because people who are traumatized, sometimes they don't know where to begin to heal. A lot of them think healing is impossible. I've talked to many on so many different levels, more so than just the jail. When I used to drive the bus, when I used to drive the dollar van up in New York City, I talked to people as things were happening. I saw a lot of weird crap in life, and I figured it out. Lots of times I look at it, I can figure it out. And many people don't know the way out. You can see it so clear, right? But many people don't know the way out of their issues and their trauma. And that could be a difference of saving their life, to give your energy and anything to help them save their life. We have so many people who profess these religions and, yes, I'm saved and sanctified, blessed and highly favored, and they'll step over somebody who really needs help. And really, when I say really needs help, it could be just to be with them, to give them a conversation or lend an ear in a non-judgmental way. Let them talk. Even if you go to talk about something and they don't talk, but you treat them to a meal, they know that you're there for that. They know that you're there to help them. And let them know, listen, you can come to me anytime. Even if you just feel lonely or whatever, you can come to me anytime. Too many of us are so caught up in this dog eat dog. I got to get mine. I got to get me. What do you want to do? Die with the most toys? There was a saying that I saw on a button one time, and I saw it several different places. He who dies with the most toys wins. Meaning that you have a car, truck, vehicle, nice, but you got to upgrade it. Not even the next 4 years, next 2 years. Oh, I got to get the new one. I got to get the new phone. I got to get a bigger house. I got to do this. And before you know it, you're stripped away of all meaningful relationships and connections because you think this thing is going to last. Who would have thought we'd be looking over the life of Malcolm Jamal Warner, right? We probably weren't even thinking about him. You know what I mean? Okay, we know him, but it's like, okay, we see these people on TV. They'll last forever. They're always going to be. No, they can die. There's so much more phone calls that I'm getting from personal people that I've known in the various circles that I'm in. Oh, homeboy died, right? Wow. Young people too, years ago, gone. We're only here for a brief time. We gotta correct certain things. We gotta make certain things better. We have to ascend. That's what we're here for, right? But some people, in their trauma, they can be downright evil. And some that I've known, going back to the whole buck breaking thing, those who have that narcissistic spirit, they can be envious of you for not having the trauma that they have. Now, I'm speaking as a man, right? It could be a woman. I'm speaking as a man. There are people that I've known very close at one time that I, in hindsight, look back and realize that they can't maintain any healthy friendships with other men. I'm not talking about any homosexual thing. I'm saying, you have your buddies, your guys you hang out with, you talk. None of his male friendships would ever last past a certain point. It was always some disaster where he was done wrong and he's blaming the next person. And it was a habit. And the proximity that this person had to me, they did the same to me. Conjure up something. And I said, what is this? So I studied on it. And I looked back and it hit me. It really hit me. This person has issues with his manhood, and it's coming out this way whenever he gets too close to male energy on a decent level. It triggers something in him and he gets scared. So he has to end the friendship or the proximity because I feel strongly he was violated when he was young. I know this in my heart, right? So him being a narcissist, it makes it even worse because he can't see himself as being this perfect person, even though narcissists really feel bad about themselves. They'll put out the image of perfection and they're in control and they're charismatic and they speak and this and that. But in the midnight hour, your confidence that you have in yourself as a man burns them up. That's why they have to come after you and try to destroy you. And knowing that, there were other members of his own family that were violated. So I'm quite sure, and I won't say anything more. Yeah, I don't want to tell anybody's business too much, but I said enough where you can connect the dots. So we just don't know. Just because they say, well, yeah, buck breaking happened hundreds of years ago. The effects are still here. Especially when you have families that don't talk to each other. There's major trauma in that family and in that bloodline. Like I'm talking from people and experiences that I've known. I've shared a lot of crazy things of what I've seen. I think I've seen a whole lot more than most people have seen. It's like this guy, Lance, he'll be on YouTube or on a podcast one day, so we have to let him see these things so he can talk about it. I'm not a person who was some scholar who went to college and read the books. I read the books, but it lines up with what I've experienced. And you have families sometimes that don't open their mouths and talk to each other. You have mothers who don't talk to the sons, who don't talk to the daughters. They're cold to each other. They may go through a motion of a partial half hug, not a hug where it's cheek to cheek, but a hug where the faces don't touch because it's almost like they stink. They don't, but that's how they are. And when these people grow up who had this type of situation, I'm not demonizing them, but do you think they know how to love? I mean, love is more than a hug. But you know the experiment. You know when they say, when they had the child that never had the hug and the child that had the hugs and love and support, that child, he thrives better. This happens all throughout life. We need the human touch, not in a violating way. But could you imagine a grown man, strong, upright, respected and honored, and now he's naked and being violated by some nasty white man? Because a lot of them white men, you think they just violated the females who were enslaved? No. They were twisted. They go get one of them bucks, and that's what they would call you. And you're like, what you want with me, man? And you see what they're doing. And they'll hold you down. They worked in teams. Because if one man is coming for another man who don't want that to happen, especially a strong African, you ain't gonna get it. But they hold you down and do this to you, and you feeling something you don't want to feel. Not only that, but they do that to you, and you come to find out that your own woman on the plantation is pregnant from a white man. And she might not have told you because she was traumatized. So now we're all screwed up. So much has happened at that time that is passed down, and it wasn't just, back in 15, whatever. The effects of it coming on up. Up until the 20th century, when we were supposed to be free, stuff was still happening because we had to turn around and work back on the plantations, even though we were free, because where were we going to go for the most part? So a lot of those stories and that vibration is passed down. This is why a lot of mothers don't want their sons to go out. I mean, could you imagine? Back in the 20s and 30s and 40s when things were transitioning, but it was still very much there. And the mothers are overprotective over the sons. You see what I mean? Well, they were protective over their daughters also. But they knew because the daughters growing up may have been looked at different because of what these wicked people saw as an opportunity for sexual contact. Or they'll kill us off as men fast, but they'll hold on to the woman for obvious reasons. That's how sick they are. And we've grown up in these situations. We've grown up in this society and stuff passed down. You see? So how is this thing not supposed to affect us? Here it is, 2025, way away from that time. And other races have dealt with things, yes, but there's nothing that you can show me that amounts to the same amount of trauma that we've had to deal with. And we have to operate as though everything is all right while we're traumatized. We have to grin and bear it, but we don't really have to. But there's so much more stuff being piled up on us in this society with the trauma that many of us have gone through our bloodline and never really feeling as though we had a chance to live. I had a post forwarded to me through Instagram, through my dear sister. She shared it with me. And I listened to it, and he didn't say what the comment section was saying, but he was basically saying how religion and so many different things were false and so many things affected us a certain way in the United States. In the comment section, they took it further. I'm not throwing off to anybody who's in the United States, but I can tell you it's true. Many people who were there were like, I left the United States 2 years ago. I'm in a different world. I feel so stress-free. I feel so like America has a spell cast on us. In the post, they were saying how the news that they broadcast and it's not really the most important thing and other things are going, and it's just this weight that's on you. There's weight on us all over the world because social media is everywhere. If you have a phone and an internet connection, you're seeing these things. So it still affects me, right? I'm not traumatized like that, but it affects me. I pulled up an interesting video when I was in the shower. I said, okay, let me let this play. And it was about the 10 most vulnerable places in the world in case World War III kicked off. I didn't even get down to like the 5th one. I know America was like going to be like the #1 spot to hit. But they were saying how different countries and why would it be more susceptible to being hit? I'm glad it didn't have Ghana on there, even though it wouldn't be at the top either. But these things that are put out, they cast spells. And I'm not saying, ooh, I'm casting a spell on you, but it flavors your mind. There's some of us who have so much trauma already from the upbringing that we got to get off and we add more stuff on. Ain't that something? It's unbelievable. You know, and just like you said, Malt Network, all these rappers in the music industry, you know, it's engineered. They're engineering so many different things. And just like many years ago, people, oh, Lance, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Now in hindsight, I'm not saying things came true or didn't come true. A lot of things went in that direction. But people who don't have discernment are not going to see what you see, and they're going to be arguing with you, and you don't argue with them. Right? Let me see what S said here. So how many men do overcome this type of trauma? I can't tell you the numbers because I'm not a specialist, but I'm willing to bet that the majority, which could be 51% or 99%, don't ever, because of the stigma of manhood, and to admit something like that would be so embarrassing. Here's another one S said. So how do young men and older men overcome this type of trauma? You gotta find somebody to talk to. It may not be in your inner circle. It might be a stranger. It might be somebody who has the same trauma. But you have to know that it's not your fault. You see what I mean? You have to know that, look, this is what I always say. We are the sum total of our experiences, known and unknown. We are the sum total of our experiences, known and unknown. I'll say it like this. I had an older cousin in her 30s who was messing around with me when I was 5, making me perform things on her. So is it a mystery why there's certain things I like because I've been imprinted even before I can think on a sexual level? You see what I mean? And there are things that we can't recall. And for many years, I didn't even recall that until deep in my meditation. I'm like, wait a second. There's a long story, but it's she got away with that. But the imprint is still there. We got to face what's inside of us, truly. But we have to realize there's nothing wrong with you and what happened to you externally. You see what I mean? There's nothing wrong with you. Because so many people out here dealing with stuff, and they have a smile on their face, and you'd never know. They're in the land of denial. And that's the worst place to be, because you don't have to carry these weights on your shoulders and in your mind all your life. I mean, it's like going to the Olympics and you're a track star, but they give you this bag, they give you a knapsack, and they give you a 50-pound weight plate to put in your knapsack. Now you want run the race. And you're like, wait a second. I can't win this race with this extra weight on me. I didn't train like this. You don't have to walk around with that weight. You see what I mean? You don't. And I'm going to wrap it down in a few. I'm going to put this link if you want to come in and add something or ask something or say something. And that's what it is. Let me see what Diane said here. Our ancestors have endured much trauma with their children being taken from them, sold off to different plantations, their babies being fed to alligators, and children beat to death by white women. Yes. And the thing is, too, it's minimized the role that white women had in the slave trade. Once they got here, once they brought enslaved Africans here. Them white women were just as bad, if not worse. Because there was a program that I was absorbing the other day that it showed how if you're a white woman married to a man who has slaves, you don't have any clout. Those are his slaves, right? They have to listen to you, but you have no clout in their white society, their white racist society. So there are a lot of young white women who are encouraged to purchase their own slaves. That brought them clout because now they're bringing something to the table. The more slaves you had, in one sense, you were viewed as more powerful in that white world. There's so many different things that, we focus on one thing or the other, but there's so many other little things that slip between the cracks that we don't even notice. And how they treated the slaves, the things that they did, cruel, even when the Klan was developed, they were there. They might have been ironing and sewing the outfits for the Klan members, but they did have a woman's KKK. I got to find that video and do a little research and bring the facts. Arkansas and Louisiana and all them places down in the South, Georgia, but they had it. And remember, again, this is not just a 5-part miniseries like Roots. You can get up and go and use the bathroom or grab something to eat before the commercial was over. We're talking hundreds of years. The generations born into this thing had children that generations after still was in it. Still. But then other people with the small hats who run Hollywood and the entertainment and music industry always tell you, never forget, never forget. And they milk billions out of America for that country that is not theirs, while they're snuffing off all the people who are already there. And it's something. And those of us who have the bloodline of going through what they went through and fighting and advancing and still ain't there yet. They don't get a thin dime. But everybody else can come into America and get this and get that. And we still don't get. You see what I mean? And yes, I live in Africa now. And if reparations came, I'll be the first one with my hand out to get it right along, because all my years living in America, I have beautiful memories within my community, but I've had to endure a lot, especially on a psychological level, but I was tougher than them. They weren't going to crush me, weren't going to beat me down. My brother succumbed to using drugs all his life. Don't know the real reasons. Who knows? Who knows? He never really opened up. He's still getting high to this day. And what is he now? He's got to be about, what, just turned 74. Ain't that something? But the thing is, we don't know, before I wrap it up, we don't know what people are going through. We don't know what they have on their mind. People in your inner circle still assume that maybe there's something that they have on their heart that you don't know about, and come to them in love and understanding. When somebody tells you something or shares something with you, keep it to yourself. Don't violate their trust, because that can be a killer. And that can move the needle over to a point where, you know, they do something deadly to themselves. And we don't want that. Anyway, just want to say much love to you all. I'm going to sign off. I'm going to get up very early and do some things, but we'll have a discussion tomorrow evening, probably or afternoon for you, because I'm 4 hours ahead of the East Coast. And I love to go deep, and I'm going to go even deeper with these discussions instead of just the general stuff that's going on. But one thing I want to address again, and I've been talking about it for the last few days in different ways, the engineered civil war between Black people, melanated people globally. The propaganda that's pushed. Earlier today, I ran across a video. Several people sent it to me today about the African young lady who has a business in America here. And she caught wind of the August 1st boycott of African businesses, native African businesses that, you know, they're born in natively in Africa and moved here. And then you have the group that calls themselves the FBA. And some of them have elected to say, we're going to boycott all African businesses. And this young lady on the video came back and said, well, if you want to go to war with us, we're going to go to war with you. See, that's the reason why on the back end, the real reason why they have social media, to mind control you. That blue light, that artificial light that keeps you up. How they brought YouTube shorts and then Instagram follow through. And then we have TikTok with little minute videos, little bite-sized pieces. We keep scrolling, we keep watching, we keep bombarding ourselves with data. We keep bombarding ourselves with other people's ideologies and the things they put out that we follow. How do you know it's a massive amount of people doing some boycott? See? They want us against each other. Memorandum 46. They don't want Black folks from America to connect with folks from Africa. It's game over if that happens. But they have to manufacture it a certain way. I'll even go deeper again. I've been saying this for years. I think tomorrow I'll go in on that deeper. And I'm trying not to name names, but there are certain social media influencers that are there now that you all know. And they represent certain factions with certain ideologies in our community in America. And you have some who earlier on in their career, they never liked Black women. Come to find out that they're married to a white woman. And they're trying to pass it off as, oh, they're Mexican or whatever. That tells it right there. But this joker, I'd say about 13 years ago, was always talking about his whole platform, just like Tommy Sotomayor, who was his buddy, was to put down Black women. Oh, these hairy-hatted hoes, they ain't no, and he talks like that too, so you know who I'm talking about. These hairy-headed hoes who they ain't nothing but they just good for breeding, and then when they have these kids, you know, they ain't got no man. They got probably like 18 baby daddies and 9 kids, and the kids ain't nothing. They just gonna grow up to be criminals, and these hairy-headed hoes are laying around collecting welfare and living in Section 8 ain't no good. Yep. Then one day, he wiped the whole channel clean. Huh? Let somebody name names. Oh, Mad Guns Forever. Welcome on in, brother. Yes. Yes, Diane. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Because we can knock each other off for them. Right? You smart there, brother. I can't say, yep, Kevin. I told you about that in our conversation, you know. And there's other ones. But this is how it works. This is how it works on YouTube. I'm going to tell you how it works on social media and YouTube. They will pick. The powers that be. I don't know. I don't know names to name with them, but you're made an offer. You're made an offer. They see that you're so hungry to get hits and to get likes and to get numbers. You're so hungry for this that they know they can use you. I have been approached indirectly way back in the day, but they saw I wasn't going for it. I ain't doing it because there's a price to pay. And right now, brother man got to pay the price and speak on behalf or against and still trying to be safe in the safe whatever, because now you're built up in the Black community to be so trusted. And there are artificial ways of boosting up your numbers. I know this for a fact. I've known different people on social media platforms before Facebook and before YouTube came to be. I'm an old goat in this game, y'all. 2001 in February was when I first got online and started doing what I was doing in a different way, and it ascended to this. I used to draw pictures. When the picture was done, I'd upload it. It might take 2 weeks, might take a week and a half. There was no video like that. MySpace came out and changed things a little bit, but I was on Black Planet. And I got to know people on the staff of Black Planet behind the scenes, Black folk. And it wasn't all Black folk who were there. They told me the deal. And when Facebook came and it was so innocent. Little kitty birthday parties. Nice little, you go to the amusement park and have fun. It didn't get political yet. It wasn't a thing called a podcast yet. But they know when they were giving it to you, you may resist it, but you'll get into it. And slowly they increased the intensity of the content. You didn't have many personalities on. You had personal people who were putting things up and you're scrolling around and looking at it. But then when we started to get into these hot topics, and some people started to make a little money, because there's some who had large followings. Now let's talk about the Black community. You have people back then who was strictly, they would replay videos of high school kids at McDonald's fighting girls and see what I tell you, these Black women ain't no good. They ain't no good and ain't nothing good for them. And you need to stay away from them. You got sons, you better keep them sons away from the Black women. You see what I mean? And they saw how we can be mind screwed. I'm not going to say the F word. Slowly hypnotized like the snake charmer. Hypnotizes the snake. And we're hypnotized, except there's no snake charmer. It's the phone in front of us. That's the snake charmer. And we escape reality, but we're also open to receiving what they want to have us receive in our mind. At one time it was television, but television is not strong enough. You can't walk around with your television in your pocket, but you can now. and the content that's put out there and what they allow to go out there. So they allow you to become somebody who's reputable, and you come to Africa and you put a nice suit and tie on, and now you're speaking about, Africa and Black Matters, and, people are in your corner, and all of a sudden you blow up. And it's not out of envy I say this. I'm the kind of guy, I love to talk about things. Kevin will tell you, I grew up with him. I like to talk. I like to make people laugh. I like to engage people. I don't care if it's 5 or 500. That's what I do. I like to create memories. And so they have these people that they choose that over the years, you trust them because they're doing the right thing, but you don't remember. Maybe you weren't on social media like that watching stuff, but you may not remember that. Some people do. And I don't care how much you can erase the old stuff. I remember. That dude ain't going to deal with me. He ain't going to deal with nobody who deals with me. Those are other stories too. I won't put other people out there. But now, here we are, the people that you trust and know and are impressed with the amount of people they have following them. So they must be influential. No, they're not. They're backed up by the people who want to execute the engineered agenda. And many of us are so gullible. It's just like the War of the Worlds when it played over the radio and people really thought Martians were invading the world. And they jumping out of windows, killing themselves. I'm not saying that's funny. What I'm saying is that if you can be made to believe it, see? I read something else earlier today where they put out on CNN that there was some tsunami in some country. Was it Taiwan? Somewhere in Asia. And this person was there, not seeing any flooding going on in the very area they reported that. So we see things, or we see battles going on, and we take our sides because the lines are drawn. Well, I'm not going to deal with them Africans, or them Jamaicans need to go back. Look, I know about that well. Because in elementary school, when they found out that my father was Jamaican, I caught it. And I'm sitting here born in America. So where does that put me? My father's from out of the country, right? Naturalized and down with everything, just as American as anybody else, even though he was born and raised in Jamaican, he's a Jamaican. While he was alive, he was a citizen. But I was treated a certain way by, very young, by certain ignorant factions in my particular block and neighborhood. I'd hear little comments. So I was accepted by many, but some rejected me. I wasn't traumatized though, because I knew I belonged. But this is how Black people can be with each other. And that's our problem. We're so quick to draw the line and find reasons to be separate. For those who want to always go after the immigrant who's Black. And yes, there are some Africans that come to America who have attitudes toward the Americans there, but we need to, damage has been done on both sides, man. We got to educate and suffer a little bit, suffer the onslaught of ignorance, and come to a united front, which is a nightmare of the slave master, the oppressor. YouTube and all of these things, they're government backed. They're private, but it's the government pulling the strings behind it to manipulate the people. If and when America goes to war, there will be things that you will not be shown on YouTube because they want you to know, or they want you to think the enemy is this person or that person. And it works both ways. So everybody will be juiced up for what they see, and it may not be the complete truth and reality. And we'll all be mentally buck-broken, traumatized over something that, in that case, may not exist because they want you to think a certain way. And when you do swim against the tide, they get rid of you. They'll tell you you're getting hit, but you may not have none, no hits at all. And I care about that on one end, You want your viewpoint put out there, but the popular thing, I'm done. I'm 62 years old. I'm not 90 or 100. But all I'm saying is that I'm not going to sit here for the next 2 or 3 decades trying to hit the mark. No. More and more, I'm enjoying myself, and I'm going to keep doing it, but I'm not going to kill myself because they have their fingers on the button and they can manipulate. So whatever I talk about is going to be real. We're going to put it down. Thank you, Malt Network. I didn't even look at the chat room yet. I said I was leaving, but I'm still I'm still here talking, you know. Yeah, but it's just so much in this world, and we're being influenced, and we can't ignore how we're influenced. And there's nothing wrong with the influence, but make sure it's the right thing. Test it. Take it back several steps. Don't accept it on face value. Who are these people? See, I can't lie about my life because Kevin is right here. Kevin Clark, right in the room, right there. We go back. We were talking about the first time we connected. He lived 3 blocks over from me. I was riding my unicycle, and we started talking. I know his parents, God rest their soul. He knows my parents, God rest their souls. I know his whole family, entire family. Now, there may be distant cousins or what that I don't know. I can close my eyes and be in his living room and be in his dining room and speaking to his mother or father, God rest his soul, right now, their voices, the expressions. I know the things we've been through, and we have a circle in the community of people that we communicate with every day, pretty much. I'm going to be talking to him after I get off this show. He knows some dirt on me too. Nothing bad. I never snuffed nobody, but I'm just saying, things we do. Right? Close. That's beautiful. To have somebody, especially who knows your bloodline, that you can talk to. And we're in our 60s now, and our teen years, we know so well together. Right? So I can't come up here and lie and fabricate some reality I never lived. Oh yes, when I was 18 years old, my father gave me a yacht. I'd be lying. He knows my room. He knows my little basin that I had. He knows all the little girlfriends. He knows things I shouldn't have been doing that I did. I might have got caught. He knows the LANCESCURV dirt. He also knows the wholesome stuff because we were also good kids. You see what I mean? If the police weren't around, we're just as good. We ain't going to have no harm happen to nobody. Nobody's going to beat up on any old lady or whatever. No, it's going to happen. See, he's laughing. He knows it's the truth. See? Yeah, so know who you're following on social media. And this is the thing. AI is creating these podcasters that look so real, sound so real. How come most of them are black and the black women, and some of them are just ratchet? Why are they trying to influence us and keep us in that low-minded space? You woke me up with that mess. Inside joke. We'll be here all night telling you, but yeah, lovely life. You have your bumps and your bruises and stuff like that. But for me to be able to voicemail or call or FaceTime Brother Kevin and have a belly laugh over something we did or something that, trust me, it's a gift. It's a pleasure. And it's going on because it's all about being the real. Doesn't mean you can't just meet somebody and have a connection with them, right? But to have common friends, mutual friends, we go back decades. I'm not going to tell that story. I was a young adolescent at a house party one time, and I had this young lady who was very amorous at the time, and I knew before the sun came up that certain connections would be made. And they always tease me about this because I didn't have protection with me. And I was asking Kevin, I was asking other friends, and they said, "Man, you were so desperate to get that bag. I need a bag. I need a bag." Look, I'm telling you some crazy stuff, but we were boys. I mean, we were younger, right? I don't mind telling my stuff either, right? But life is wonderful, man. There's just so much laughs and stuff. And you know what? That's what kept me strong through darker times, because I've been, like he's seen the worst of me. He's seen bad relationships I've been in and things I've been through and reactions I shouldn't have done, running with this woman and that woman just to ease the pain and all that stuff. You laugh and it's the truth. It's the truth. K-Frame Classic, welcome on in. Welcome on in. Yeah, so I speak from experience. It's not like I've been a saint all my life, but I had a good grounding, teaching, and parents. And just like Kevin's parents, I know them well. I know what they've done for a living. I know, I just know so much about the whole family. That's my family. It keeps me going. They cry, I cry. You know what I mean? Anything goes down, I'll get my ski mask and take a plane and come on out there and take care of business with them and come on back. You ain't got to do nothing because I ain't got nothing to lose. Exactly. That's what you say, bad guns. Lance Lothario. Always give me some new names. That's right. We've seen the worst times of each other, the best and the worst. So that's what makes life worth it. That's what makes the meal seasoned. Many of us do like chicken, but nobody wants chicken the white people way with no seasoning. Good friends and family, and they can go back with you. That's like eating a gourmet chef's meal in a 5-star restaurant. It's a beautiful thing. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it down. I said I was gonna get up early, but I'll probably just sleep until I wake up and then move on and do what I have to do. But you carry trauma, just understand you're not alone, and everybody needs help. And there are some stories out there. If you think yours is bad, trust me. So don't hold it alone. Comfort each other, support each other. Life is mysterious. Tell people that you love them when you really love them. And listen, I'm not against saying F you to somebody who hates me and wants my doom. Get away from me. F you. You know what I mean? But the ones you love them more. Love them more. Because just like with what happened with our brother, the Cosby Show, you just never know. Anyway, let me see the explanation for Lothario, a man who behaves selfishly and irresponsibly in his sexual relationships with women. Yes, I've been that. Probably more than you know. I love you too, Kevin. You know that. And I'm gonna hit you up on the voicemail and make you laugh a little bit as I wind down. Exactly. My Mad Gun says, yeah, everybody hasn't been to school. That one went over me. I know a lot of little things, reading and stuff like that, but yeah, Lothario. Wow. Yeah. You can call me that, a rap sheet. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it down. Much love to you all. Thank you so much. And we're going to get into a nice discussion tomorrow night. And I like to bring up the point, make my points, but then we can free flow and know that anytime I'm on the show and I'm talking, you want to come on in, I'll put the link and you can come on in and we can go further. Tomorrow night, I probably would like to do a longer show. I'd like to do that. That would be nice, right? So anyway, much love to you all. Take care. LANCESCURV out. Play a little music, and I'm going to bounce. Peace.